In today's episode, we will talk about what happens when a king insults the creator of the universe and what happens when a king trusts in the Lord. Hi, Dovann here, and welcome to another episode of Week at a Glance, where we dive into a thoughtful summary of this week's Bible study guide. Welcome to another episode of our series on the book of Isaiah. Today we will talk about the defeat of the Assyrians. One of the most beautiful sentences I've heard lately is from my 2-year-old daughter. She said, "Daddy, I love Jesus." I was so overjoyed when I heard those words. My desire is for her not just to say that right now because she's still young, but for her to love God in every stage of her life. Now think about the prophet Isaiah. All that he ever longed to hear and experience, all that he ever wanted was a king that would love God, a king that would lead his people back to this covenantal relationship with God. Let's do a little rewind. In episode 4 of this series, we talked about the last phase of King Ahaz, the evil king of Israel. He influenced Judah to idolatry. Not only that, but he also stopped the temple worship services. When he died, the people of Judah did not even allow him to be buried with the kings of Israel because of all the evil things that he did. Our study for today covers Isaiah chapters 36 and 39, but keep that in mind as a background. Now, here are the important points to remember for today's episode. Our first point is insulting the omnipotent God. Fast forward several years later, a huge army camped outside of Jerusalem, the great Assyrian army. Isaiah chapter 36 opens up like this. Now it came to pass in the 14th year of King Hezekiah that Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, came up against all the fortified cities of Judah and took them. The king of Assyria sent Rabshakeh with a great army from Lachish to King Hezekiah at Jerusalem. Wait. Why did this happen in the first place? When Judah was paying tribute to Assyria, right? This is because the new king, that is King Hezekiah, rebelled against the king of Assyria and did not serve him, according to 2 Kings 18 verse 7. So the king of Assyria attacked the fortified cities of Judah, and he sent thousands of soldiers to bring Jerusalem to submission, while he stayed behind at Lachish, 40 kilometers southwest of Jerusalem. The Rabshakeh, that's the commanding officer of the Assyrian army that was sent by the king of Assyria, tried to negotiate with the trusted advisors of King Hezekiah outside the walls of Jerusalem to discuss the terms of surrender. In the process of doing so, he said that it was foolish of Jerusalem to count on Egypt to save them. Well, that may be true, but then, unfortunately, he took his trash talk way a bit too far. He started to insult the God of Israel, the God of the universe. Not just once, but 4 times. 3 times in chapter 36 and once in chapter 37. The first insult was in front of King Hezekiah's advisors. The second and the third insults were before the hearing of the people who were on the wall. The fourth insult was sent through a letter. Now let's take a look at the third insult. Isaiah chapter 36 verse 18 and 20. "Beware lest Hezekiah persuade you, saying," and everyone was hearing this on the wall, right? "The Lord will deliver us. Has any one of the gods of the nations delivered its land from the hand of the king of Assyria? Who among all the gods of these lands have delivered their countries from my hand, that the Lord should deliver Jerusalem from my hand?" The Rabshakeh was somehow soliciting the people to revolt against the king of Jerusalem, King Hezekiah. He was implying that Hezekiah was putting his trust in a God who was not mighty enough to save. The honor of God was at stake here. The advisors brought this news back to King Hezekiah. Now, how did King Hezekiah react to this propaganda? Now let's move on to our next point. Our second point is trusting the omnipotent God. One thing to note here is that Hezekiah reacted differently from his father and grandfathers. He trusted God. Remember that. He trusted God. Who was King Hezekiah anyways? He was the son of the evil King Ahaz, the king who shut down the temple services. So when Hezekiah became king, he wasted no time and acted on the items on his agenda. In the first year of his reign, he opened the doors of the house of the Lord. And then he restored the temple worship. And then he sent messengers to go throughout all of Israel and Judah, saying, "Children of Israel, return to the Lord God of Abraham, of Isaac, and also of Jacob." 2 Chronicles 30 verse 6. And then he did what other kings before him didn't do. He led a group that destroyed all the idols and sacred pillars in all of Israel, making the temple at Jerusalem the center of worship once again. A feature that was lost since the division of Israel into two kingdoms some 200 years ago. Prophet Isaiah's ministry stretched over 4 kings: Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah. Imagine Isaiah's joy when Hezekiah sat on the throne. Finally, a king that took God's message seriously. Finally, a king that led his people back to God. He was a king that feared God. So when the king of Assyria terrorized Judah and insulted God, Hezekiah didn't seek alliance with other nations, but he ran to God. He humbled himself and prayed for help. When King Hezekiah was threatened by the commanding officer of the Assyrian army, Rabshakeh, he humbled himself and sent a message to the prophet Isaiah to ask God for deliverance. When he received the ultimate threat from the king of Assyria, he went up to the house of the Lord and prayed. Isaiah chapter 37, verse 16 and 20 says, "O Lord of hosts, God of Israel, the one who dwells between the cherubim, you are God, you alone, of all the kingdoms of the earth. You have made heaven and earth. Now, therefore, O Lord our God, save us from his hand, that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that you are the Lord, you alone." King Hezekiah won the war on bended knees. He trusted God. In answer to his prayer, God sent an angel to kill 187,000 soldiers of the elite forces of Assyria. The Assyrian king retreated back to Nineveh, where he was later assassinated by his sons. Aside from the threats of the enemy nations, Hezekiah was battling a deadly disease. Now let's take a look at it. Our third and final point is glorifying the omnipotent God. Yes, you heard it right, glorifying the omnipotent God. This is what he should have done, to glorify God. But instead, he became selfish and showed the glory of his kingdom instead of giving the glory to God. Read through Isaiah chapter 38 and 39, as well as 2 Kings chapter 20 for the details of the story. King Hezekiah was very sick, so God sent Isaiah, and Isaiah told him that he would soon die. Hezekiah prayed for God's intervention, and he said, "Lord God, I have served you all throughout these years. I've been faithful to you." And instantly, God told Isaiah to go back to Hezekiah. And as a sign that God would heal him, God made the shadow of the sundial go 10 degrees backward. And so Hezekiah was healed, and 15 years were added to his life. Now the king of Babylon learned of this miraculous healing and sent ambassadors. This would have been a perfect opportunity to glorify the omnipotent God of Israel. But Hezekiah failed to tell the Babylonian ambassadors about the power of his God. Instead, he showed them his treasures, he showed them his glory. And because of this, Isaiah told him that a day is coming when all these treasures will be carried to Babylon, and his descendants will be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. Was Hezekiah one of those kings who had a perfect start but ended badly? What does the Bible say as an assessment of his reign? 2 Kings chapter 18 verse 5 says, "He trusted in the Lord God of Israel, so that after him was none like him among all the kings of Judah, nor who were before him." But wait, he became selfish at the end of his career, right? Yeah, that's right, but what is not recorded in 2 Kings and in the book of Isaiah is how King Hezekiah humbled himself before God after his selfish episode. 2 Chronicles chapter 32 verse 26, "Then Hezekiah humbled himself for the pride of his heart, he and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so that the wrath of God did not come upon them in the days of Hezekiah." I believe that Isaiah, in the later years of his life, was filled with joy because of King Hezekiah, because he continued to love and trust God. Let's learn from Hezekiah's mistake. Take every opportunity to point people to God. Glorify the omnipotent God. In summary, here are the different points we talked about in today's episode. Point number 1, insulting the omnipotent God. That's a no, don't do that. And point number 2, trusting the omnipotent God. And point number 3, glorifying the omnipotent God. If you find this episode helpful, then share it with a friend. Spread the word and change lives one message at a time. And if you want to watch more summaries like this, then click on this video. This is again Dovann for Week at a Glance. I'll see you again next week.